GenAI is only adding one type of risk to the equation. Security is kind of the thing that was left behind. The problem is that there can be a lot of friction between the two different parts of the organization.
There is a development organization which is having 5 engineers, and there is a centralized DevSecOps.
And so as soon as you're actually picking a goal, there's a list of requirements that are tied to it. Security is like the first citizen and not something that you just only add when your software is already in production.
So, hey, David, why JIT? And what is JIT?
Hi, Amit. Thanks for having me on your show. So I can define JIT in one very simple sentence. JIT is an early stage startup with a very simple mission. We want to provide you with the easiest way to secure your code and your cloud without impacting your developers' velocity. Now, yeah. So if you want to understand why we're actually doing that and like what is our why, it actually starts with a very simple fact. Cybersecurity today is very complex, and usually it's owned by the security team, while actually at the end, the ones that are fixing the issues are engineers, developers, DevOps. The problem is that usually there can be a lot of friction between the two different parts of the organization because they're not sitting in the same business unit usually. And also they're not measured on the same things. For example, engineers are measured by the code that they're writing and deploying to the cloud, while security team is measured by how the security posture of the application of the environment is improving over time. And so the problem is that usually the security team is picking, the tools and writing the policies and defining everything. And at the end, they're kind of pushing to the developers the tools that they would like to use, hoping that developers will buy in. It doesn't always work like that. And basically, if your security is an afterthought while you're building your software, you're probably doing it wrong. And so what we saw in more modern progressive teams is that basically they understood that this doesn't work. And the only way to make security work at scale is by embedding security in the DNA of how you build your software. And so basically migrating or moving the ownership of security from security team to engineering doesn't mean that there's no collaboration between them and that they are the sole owner of security, but basically there needs to have some kind of cooperation and co-owning security at the level of the whole organization between the security team and the engineering team. That's the premise of what we believe, and we have a lot of conviction that's the only way it can work, because at the end these are the ones who are doing the work.
That is making sense. So you are somehow isolating security. Imagine I am a startup and I am building a feature in the product which we are building for our launch in like a year or so. So I'm a developer who is fixing and creating new features. How do your product, or how is JIT can be ingested in my software development cycle? Tell me, shed some light on, in that startup, there is a development organization which is having 5 engineers, and there is a centralized DevSecOps which handles all the pushes and integrates stuff and make sure that the code is secure. It's a separate team. So how do you fit JIT in this equation?
So I think it's a great question, and basically our platform or our product is divided in a few components. First of all, it starts with the fact that we want to help engineering with one of the main challenges. The challenges are, first of all, knowing what you need to do in order to protect your software. And so for that, what we did is that we started with something very simple. a lot of organization, they have security plans.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they're on paper or on spreadsheets, if you will, owned by the CISO or the CTO. And
Mm-hmm.
what we did is that we productized that, we codified the security plan and make it as part of the one of the main components of our platform. And so everything starts with the plan. The plan is basically very simple. It's a list of security requirements. So let's
Okay.
say you're building a cloud application, you can use one of our built-in plans, one of them being like called the minimum viable security. And that's great for startups that don't know where to start. And
Okay.
it covers everything in your product security. What does it mean? It means that it knows how to cover your code, so the AppSec part, and we'll talk about it later in more details. It covers your CI/CD pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
the way you deploy your code to the cloud. It covers your infrastructure, so where you're actually hosting your application, and also the runtime of your application, because you cannot see everything when you're only doing some static code analysis. And so if you're asking yourself, like, how does it integrate with your environment? There are multiple integration points along the SDLC. The first place is actually the IDE, because we're big believers in shift left. And so they have a lot of different tools that are integrated as a plugin in your IDE. And so, for example, everything that ties to scanning your code for vulnerabilities like SAS, static analysis, checking for secrets in your code, hard-coded secrets in your code, checking that you don't have any misconfiguration in your infrastructure as code, checking that your Docker file is properly configured. All those things are already available in your IDE. And then you want to commit your code. We also have some pre-commits hook that is configured for you. And then the next thing is your CI/CD. So we're highly integrated in your PR, so that we're listening to every PR as soon as you install our GitHub application. And by doing that, and based on the plan that you picked, we can check for everything in everything that is tied to code scanning. We can also check based on your deployment, like if you're deploying your application to some staging, we can also check DAS, so dynamic scanning. We're also checking, infrastructure. There are other different blades that we can check. And at the end, we're also checking things against your production, for example, your runtime environment. So there are multiple places where we actually integrate with your environment.
So would you say, I see it as not only like I would deep dive in security features, but to me seems like it's a enhanced developer experience where you have multiple things or multiple, at multiple places you are bringing efficiency to developers by integrating things in IDE and hand holding at every step where they are supplying the code to the prod. Is it fair? Is it a developer experience or is it security specific product?
No, so I tell you, so you actually got it very right. We didn't want to write a security product like the traditional cybersecurity product that you all know,
Yeah.
um, because we know the pain that it can be for developers. And so we highly invested into making sure that developers are getting the best experience ever. What does it mean? It means that a couple of things. First of all, we don't want to overwhelm them with things or vulnerabilities that are not tied to what they wrote. So for example, in the PR integration, they only see vulnerabilities tied to the code change that they introduce in the PR and not everything else. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we don't want them to be distracted by entering into another product UI. And so all the information is available for them in the PR itself. And that's why we call ourselves JIT, like in just in time, because we provide them with all the information just in time for them to fix it. And the last thing is that we really are making sure that they are focusing on deploying their code as fast as possible to the cloud. And so for that, for example, we are ensuring that all our scanners are optimized, and we only scanning for the changes in the PR and not scanning everything. And also we're checking what was a change in the PR and only run the appropriate tool and not all the tools that are configured in the environment.
Awesome. So, and that orchestration would be driven by the security plan, which this particular profile of user is following in that session of your software.
Yeah, exactly. And the main idea around those security plans is that they're outcome driven. They're business outcome driven. What does it mean? Like, no one is doing security just for the sake of security. We're doing security because it's tied to some business goal. It can be like passing some compliance audit. It can be improving your security posture because you want to enable sales. There's a lot of different drivers to those plans and different outcome that you can get. And so as soon as you're actually picking a goal, there's a list of requirements that are tied to it. What we're doing behind the scenes is that we're mapping all those security requirements to a list of tools and processes. The tools can be open source, they can be cloud native, they can be commercial, and we package all those tools and we orchestrate them in order to provide you one single pane of glass and one unique experience, though all these tools are speaking different languages. And
Yeah.
we're packaging all the output into one single experience for the developers.
Awesome. Now I am going to put my hat of CISO. And see, as a CISO, I have my goals based on the security maturity model I have. Um, I have my goals to take maturity a step forward, enable the business. And I'm guessing based on the security maturity model of an organization, you can customize a plan, or you might have a set of plans which can map to those um, industries slash security maturity model um, combinations. Like, for example, in healthcare, if a startup is coming up, what would be the minimum viable security is required without hampering too much the developer's productivity? And how do you map that requirement to a plan and execute it?
Yeah, exactly. So we started with a couple of built-in plans, and we're currently working into expanding that. And as you say, like, there's a lot of different type of plans. There are plans that are more based on maturity. So you can start with something minimal, like the minimal viable security, and then like you can upgrade to expand to more areas and increase the level of what you're looking in terms of improvement of security posture. There are also plans that are more use case driven. For example, AppSec or InfraSec. And there are also plans that are based on the industry and some vertical. So for example, for healthcare, there are definitely some plans that are dedicated from them. We're currently working on adding all of them, and we want to expand into the next quarter around all these different type of plans to provide really each one with his tailored plan, the plan that can really guide him through the security journey. And we want to handhold him like starting with some specific plan and then going forward to the next goal and the next goal and the next. And security is an endless journey.
Yes.
So we believe that we'll be your wingman along the security journey at the end.
Awesome. Thank you. I would like to see one of the plan very soon. But before that, like, I want to see the plan and how it orchestrate different tools and produce results. But before that, I want to know, how do you start this company? What was the point where you realized that I want to make a tool which can be just in time for developers to improve productivity?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can tell you a little bit about my story.
Yeah.
So I was born in France and moved to Israel about 15 years ago. I have a
Mhm.
PhD in bioinformatics, which is probably not very common for CTOs.
What
Uh,
is that degree? What was the subject?
bioinformatics. So it was
Bioinformatics.
a combination of biology and computer science.
Hmm.
Super interesting. I actually did PhD on the DNA curvature. And after that, I actually dove more deeper into computer science and moved to Israel, worked for a great company called MyHeritage. And then I started to dive into the cybersecurity field. And this is what I've been doing for the last, I don't know, more than 10 years. Been working in a company started called CloudLock that was acquired by Cisco. And after
Okay.
these few years at Cisco, like seeing really firsthand like the difficulties of implementing security at scale in a company like Cisco and a corporate, like it's not very easy. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of friction between different teams because they're not having the same goal at the end. And so, developers at the end, they're mostly interested into making sure that their code hits production as soon as possible, and everything else is distraction. And
Hmm.
so when I saw that, and also I was still in touch with the co-founders of CloudLock, and this is like we're 5 co-founders in the company. We really felt that there's something that needs to be done differently here. The fact that today in 2024, when everything in engineering is working towards ensuring the highest velocity from QA that is embedded in the team, IT that has migrated to infrastructure as code, and so everyone can build its own infrastructure within a few lines of code. Everything speaks velocity. And security is kind of the thing that was left behind. So we felt that there's really something that needs to be done there in order to ensure that when you're a modern company that is born in the cloud, you really need to be not only shift left, but also bone left, making sure that the whole way you're building a software needs to be thought out differently. You need to think that security is like a first citizen and not something that you just only add when your software is already in production.
Great, great. So, one thing which came into my mind while we are speaking about it, in today's world, there are, because of the generative AI and many other advancements in artificial intelligence, understanding text and images, there are lots of tools which are coming up, which actually are geared towards developer experience, because at the end, developer experience is all about uh, reading and understanding the code and then propagating the information. And I feel like the Gen AI um, uh, applications based upon LLMs are doing these things and creating those products where you can, you are integrated with Jira, you are integrated with your single sign-on systems, you're integrated with your pipeline and all the tools, and you do everything one by one in the same purview. And I feel like your product is also doing similar kind of things. Do you How do you see yourself working with these modern products, which are basically spun by enterprises like Microsoft or Amazon, which are already having a big chunk of enterprises as their consumers? But I think in this question, there would be a segue where you can also talk about the mid level or early stage companies using your product. So I want to have some light on your consumers and what do they feel about in this plethora of Gen AI applications.
I think it's interesting because everyone now is talking about Gen AI. It's the new stuff, and Gen AI applications are interesting in many ways, and making sure that you can protect them is also something that is now the center of attention of a lot of different startups that also are working towards it. But I think at the end, like most of the applications that are built um, for the cloud and in the cloud actually have very similar architecture. the fact that you have Gen AI is like it's only part of your application. Usually it's pouring some intelligence into the application, but you still have the same building blocks and how you build it. And so I think that at the end, if you think about it, it only adds a few controls or a few lines, if you will, in the security plan, because those security plans at the end, they're based on how the application is architected.
Hmm.
And so, for example, if you have an application that is based on microservices, you would probably have a list of items in your security plan that is very common, whether you have, an application that is written in some language or it's hosted in certain cloud. It doesn't matter. At the end, 80% of the risk are the same. And so Gen AI is only adding one type of risk to the equation. So I don't think it will drastically change the way those security plans are built. What I believe it can change is the way you can actually have plans that are more tailored to your needs. One of the ideas that, for example, you could use Gen AI so that based on your unique combination of business logic, vertical, a lot of different factors, you can build your own unique plan. And that would be possible thanks to Gen AI because like it's generative AI, so it knows how to generate stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that in the end, if you think about tailored security, like the security that you want to be as close as possible to your unique needs, this is what Gen AI is making possible.
Yeah, I feel like somehow your plans or execution of those plans can be integrated with the Gen AI apps
Oh,
to
yeah, for
create
sure.
a holistic experience. Awesome.
Yes,
We talked a lot about the security plans. I want to see them.
sure.
Show me the minimum viable plan, and tell me how this will be integrated into the dev process.
Yeah, just let me share my screen and I will show you. I still cannot share.
Maybe I need to give you something.
Yeah, you need to give me permission to share.
Okay,
Security, right?
um,
Yeah, that's great. I can share now.
okay, cool,
Let me just
awesome.
share it here. Okay, great. Um, so this is just an example of plan. Here you have an example of two different layers. One is the application security and the other is cloud security. And as you can
Oh,
see here, this is a very, very simple plan, right? You have application security with static code analysis, hard-coded secrets, and dependency check. And for cloud
oh,
security, we're scanning for misconfiguration in your infrastructure as code, Docker file vulnerabilities, and also Kubernetes configuration file.
that's
We're,
awesome. So it's so modular. It's like
yes.
pick and choose kind of thing.
Yeah. Let me actually show you, for example, another plan that is more complete, or like it's bigger actually. You can see like there's a lot of modules, and you can just activate the modules that you want, like it's the requirement that you want. And for each of them, you have some information regarding what it's actually doing and how it's integrated. So, for example, SCA is integrated into the SD CI/CD and runs on every PR. And of course,
Mm.
it's also run like daily to make sure that we're not missing any new vulnerabilities. Um,
Okay. So one question.
yes.
So for example, earlier I thought it's only AppSec, but now I see it's CloudSec too, which is great. So, so basically in CloudSec, you are connecting with AWS accounts and then running some kind of scans in case of AWS.
Yeah, so it's very straightforward. Where actually the integration is with AWS is really a one-click button. We are installing a cloud formation stack that gives us access to your whole organization, and so we
Ah,
can automatically scan for all the accounts and scan all the accounts automatically on the schedule.
And
Um,
and in case of AppSec, in case you wanna sniff or scan a particular PR, uh, how do you do that? You connect with the repo and trigger and 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 react on triggers.
Yes. So what we have is we offer a GitHub application that is available in the GitHub Marketplace. And as soon as you install the application, it grants us access to all your repos, basically. Or you can choose whether you want to give us access to everything or not. If you grant us access to everything, we're listening to all the PRs across all your repos, across all your organization. And so as soon as you create a new PR or update the PR, we're automatically running the appropriate scanning. Now, I can even show you how it looks in real time because we have this screen called pipelines, and you can see everything's coming on live in the system. So for example, here you can see that this was triggered by an update on the pull request. And these are the two tools that we ran. And that's basically depending on what you picked in the plan and whatever change you added in the PR.
Okay, that's
You can
great. Now, this is good. Now, can you make a plan from scratch and add a couple of actions in each section?
Yeah, you can do that. So what I didn't show you yet is that at the end, the plan is available in your GitHub organization. So
Okay.
Um, it's very simple. Like this is an example of a plan. This is our plan basically, and you can see that it's as code. So you can define your plan. You can configure it also as code. We're really big believers in the GitOps approach, and so everything that you change in your repo is automatically propagated into our system.
But a question. So your UI is driven by these YAML files. Um,
Yes.
um, if a if I need to add on to this plan as an admin of my own engineering team, um, do I need to modify the YAML files?
So you can either change it directly in the YAML or you can change it in the UI. Like we have both, like we have
Okay.
bidirectional sync, so you can
Okay.
decide whatever you prefer. It's really very flexible. But the whole idea is that we build that as a platform. So tomorrow you can also integrate your own tool. Let's say you have some internal set of tests. You can just wrap that into a container and you can integrate that with that platform.
And how easy it is to make custom containers? Do you have any SDK exposed or API exposed which people can use to plug in new products?
So right now, this is what we're working on. We want to open the platform to allow custom controls, and we're currently really working on it. So stay tuned; it will be released soon.
Awesome, that's great. I think I'm good with these plans. I probably we will end soon, but I think probably another question I want to ask you is about what is the state of JIT? Like, do you have customers? How many customers you have? Like, do you want to shed some light on the reach of JIT in market?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I didn't talk much about the company, but we're an early stage startup. We have about 35 employees. Our headquarters is in Boston, and our R&D center is in Tel Aviv, Israel. We raised about $38.5 million from top tier VCs, Bolstart, Insight, Tiger, FXP, and Tech Aviv.
Hmm.
And we have already customers. We have dozens of customers that are using us, and we have like really thousands of users. Mostly, we're currently targeting the mid-market. We have a few enterprises, but like our sweet spot, like we have companies from like a few developers to hundreds and even thousands of developers. So but really, our main sweet spot is around like mid-market. This is where we see a lot of traction. And I encourage everyone to test us. We're have a self-service, like our product is self-service, so you can just go into Git.io and test it by yourself. Like I can show you, it's very simple.
Does it
Uh,
does it cost anything for individuals?
so we have some free trial. Definitely you can try it out. And if you're interested and you feel that this is something that can help you secure your product, feel free to contact us.
Okay, awesome. That's great, David. I think we stop this here.
Sure. I
And
didn't show the developer experience, but maybe we can do that the next time because
maybe
I
we'll
think
do,
it's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do the next time. And I feel
Yeah.
I want to do one more talk with you, which is I want to dig deeper into the funding process of your company and journey of that process, like what happened, how, like demystify it for the engineers probably.
Yeah. Sure.
So we will set up another session. We'll talk about developer experience and your company's funding.
Awesome.
Awesome then. We'll talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit. Talk to
Bye.
you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.